A stable, orderly country that prides itself on a reputation for efficiency and compliance. Rocked by discontent. These public rampages were initially seen as a response to the Netherlands' first curfew since the Nazi occupation in the Second World War. In reality, the tensions had been spreading.
I think this country is hurting right now. It's in pain.
This is Sylvana Simons, a Dutch celebrity who recently launched her own political party. She thinks the unrest exposed an undercurrent of resentment across generations.
What we're seeing right now is just this country reaping what it has sowed. The Netherlands have always projected an image which I call a facade of being reasonable, of being progressive and tolerant and open. But what it really was, it was just on the surface. If your education system is not working, then this is what you get. If your economic system is not working, then this is what you get. If your social system isn't working, this is what you get. And if you've been pushing politics of division for 15 years, 20 years, then this is what you get.
The combination of the COVID-related lockdown here, alongside a childcare allowance scandal which last month caused the sudden collapse of the coalition government, has had a destabilising impact and added to the sense of a country losing its grip. Those who were already frustrated felt emboldened, vindicated, because the government had broken its own rules. It created a perfect storm.
There's no pandemic now, eh?
The World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic in March last year. The instability, though, has given rise to characters who've cultivated followings with their movements speaking out against restrictions imposed on their freedoms. Dance teacher Willem Engel is one of the most visible skeptics of corona.
I understand the feeling of hopelessness. I understand the feeling of agitation and aggression of the people committing that violence. However, I do not think that is the right way.
You know you have the power to stop the people confronting politicians in their face.
No, but I want them to confront politicians. So why would I try not to get them to do that?
Despite more than 100 million confirmed cases and 2.2 million deaths across nearly 200 countries, his group Virus Truth, which has 52,000 Facebook followers, doesn't believe the coronavirus pandemic exists. This, as well as other COVID-related conspiracy theories, anti-vax and QAnon, have been gaining support here.
Ik doe niet meer mee.
Even attracting influential celebrities who galvanized others with their rallying cry against the lockdown on social media via the hashtag Ik doe niet meer mee, I'm not doing it anymore.
The only thing that is destabilizing our society are dumb COVID rules.
Many of these celebrities have since apologized and U-turned, but not all. Rapper and podcast host Lange Frans sees his music as a vehicle to speak out against government policy. One of his most well-known songs, The Land Of, became the unofficial anthem of the protests.
Being the soundtrack to critical thinking is a big honor, yeah. Because the people who are protesting, they're just thinking like, what's going on in the world? This is not necessary for something like the flu.
Patients with COVID were nearly 5 times more likely to die than those with the flu, according to a study in the British Medical Journal. Baseless claims and medical misinformation, combined with popular QAnon slogans in his songs, are believed to be the reason the artist's channel was taken down off YouTube.
I don't know about the whole QAnon thing and how you should call it. I think that there are a lot of people who are against pedophiles and they believe in God. And if that's the same thing as QAnon, then we'll wear the badge proudly.
But of course, QAnon is so much more than just this. At its heart, it's a wide-ranging, completely unfounded theory that says that Donald Trump is waging a secret war against Satan-worshipping paedophile elites. Believers draw in news events, historical facts and numerology to develop their own far-fetched conclusions. One of the smallest countries on the continent, the Netherlands now has one of the largest QAnon followings. It sometimes feels as if some of the seeds of discontent that have flourished in the US may be sown here too. But why?
I mean, this was never a country of big conspiracy theories. But when we do things, apparently we do them right. And it's easy to find yourself believing those things if you are not well informed, because if you don't know the truth, anything could be true.
Don't over-exaggerate the amount of people who represent them. I believe once again, things can change. I can be wrong for the future, but today it's not like it is in the United States of America.
Geert Wilders, a famously anti-Islam politician who's been one of the most outspoken populist voices in Dutch politics for almost 2 decades. He was recently convicted of insulting Moroccans. He's also the country's opposition leader.
Are you worried by the presence of these types of characters, the QAnon groups, the Willem Engels, and the threat that they potentially pose to the stability of Dutch society?
Of course. I mean, they are not a huge group, fortunately. But they should be dealt with in the most severe way, because in a way first they try to use violence or intimidation at least, which is something that we should never accept, but they also stop the democratic process of parliamentarians, whatever party you are from, that are, as you said, being hassled, going to parliament or doing their job just because of their views.
The success of any COVID policy relies upon mass compliance. Neighbours Germany and Belgium have similar lockdowns in place, and most Dutch people have now accepted the draconian constraints. Bars and restaurants are closed and all non-essential shops are shut. A 9 p.m. curfew is in place until at least next month.
We've been travelling around the country and speaking to people who are losing faith in the system. They saw the U-turns over the COVID response, they saw the benefits scandal, the government collapse, the last in the EU to start vaccinating people, and they're finding themselves asking, where do I find the truth? And they're increasingly searching in places where the conspiracy theories are spinning around. Does that worry you?
Yes, there is a small group of people from the start who disagreed with the government. And when they disagreed, because they were not saying there was not a virus, but they were telling us, you are not taking the necessary measures. And then we have always tried to engage in a dialogue and to discuss. But the amount of people in the Netherlands who really are saying we are open to the conspiracy theorists is a very small number.
But there is a real risk ignoring or dismissing the dissatisfaction will push some of those who already feel forgotten closer to the edge and fuel the infodemic. Although the uncertainty could funnel some voters back to more familiar territory.
The Netherlands has a multi-party system, which makes it virtually impossible for any one party to win power. And the checks and balances here mean those ripples of unrest we're seeing are unlikely to turn into the types of waves that could really change the direction of this parliament.
The irony is, a man once viewed as one of its most extreme members is now sounding comparatively moderate.
We are in a crisis, you know, and in a crisis, people like to look at stability. For me, as an opposition leader, it's my task to tell them that that is not reality and that there are better options than him. But of course, I have to deal with it that, as in many other European countries, the current prime ministers or presidents are looking as more stable factors today.
Truth and freedom. Promised and promoted by politicians from across the spectrum. Who can deliver them in the context of the COVID crisis might just decide the outcome of Europe's first election of 2021.